Hi, it's Evelyn back again. This is my third part to this video. I was just talking about, actually the photo that you see up is a picture of my daughter and her friend, and they both gave me permission to use this video, or this picture on my video. And on the 11th, which was yesterday, and I've sat in this position many times visiting my daughter, I'd never noticed this picture before. And as I'm looking at it, and you don't see it here because I had to move the picture to show it, but you'll see it on the tag shot of this picture. There was literally a black cord hanging right between their faces, dividing them, a dark cord, dark energies coming between them, okay? And as you see in this picture, it's very representative of codependencies. When I got up that morning, the first thing I heard was "the day the earth stood still." So it's like the silence after the death, you know? That initially with death there's grieving, and then all of a sudden everything is still. And where do you go from here? The day the earth stood still. So in graduation, it's the same reference. Where do you go right after you graduate? You know, you've worked your whole life to get to this point, and then you graduate. Now what? You know, there's that limbo feeling, the day the earth stood still. So then I started into this downloaded information about, it's not just about discovering our wounds, about the divine masculine and feminine within us and clearing them, but going deeper, dividing it more, and going into the divine masculine and feminine child and the divine masculine and feminine adult. List all the attributes of all of those things. And it will specifically tell you where you need to work. So we ended up having a conversation about this, me and my son and my daughter, about where their strengths lie and where their weaknesses lie. And where do ours, you know, go within yourself to discover where there are still wounds that need to come up. So as an example, the divine feminine child plays with dolls. She wears pretty dresses. She flirts and idolizes her father. She's a homemaker. She likes to cook or play cook, you know. Allows the masculine to protect and provide for her. And she wants most of all to feel loved. The divine masculine child plays sports, builds, they're very excitable, whereas the divine feminine child can be more moody. The divine masculine builds, calculates, takes risks, teases girls, and idolizes his mother. And he wants, as opposed to wanting to feel loved, the divine masculine child wants to feel free. He wants to go out and play. Now this isn't everything. I mean, if you come up with other attributes of the divine masculine and feminine child, you know, please comment below. That's great. But this is just an example of some of the attributes. Because we're supposed to be all of these, not just the divine masculine and feminine, but the divine masculine and feminine child and adult. And what's the difference between the adult and the child? The child is free and the adult is responsible, and we need to incorporate both of these. So the divine feminine adult, traditionally, and I'm not talking about, you know, typical divine feminines, because we all have the masculine and feminine in us, so none of us are completely one way or the other. The divine feminine adult energy is a follower, socializes, allows in sex, expresses her feelings very easily. She's very nurturing. She's a natural teacher and a natural follower and gatherer, and wants to feel loved. The divine masculine adult protects, defends, provides, tends to be the aggressor, the controller, the hunter, and wants to feel free. And the divine masculine, divine feminine child, what they want from the adult, both children want the daddy to protect their life and the mommy to protect their heart. The divine masculine and feminine adults, what they expect of the child. The divine feminine sees their child as they want them to reflect their heart of unconditional love. And the divine masculine, as the father, wants their child to reflect their spirit of play and adventure. So we need to look at each of these separate aspects and see where in ourselves each of these are lacking, because we need to incorporate not just two, the masculine and feminine, but all four of these aspects, the divine masculine and feminine adult and the divine masculine and feminine child. So ask yourself then, after you go through this, make a list of these things, and then you'll be able to see very plainly where is it that you need to work on your wounds. So, and we had a discussion about this with my son and my daughter, and it was great, and they were very open to listening to this information. Who drains you? Okay, and then the black cord that was running through between their faces in this picture was all about dark energies who can come in between a false relationship, because you see in this picture they each have a false mouth on. And yes, this picture was taken in fun. They were playing it. They were at a football game at this time, so it was a lot of fun for them, but it was so perfectly representative of codependency. So you see the one with the false mouth, it's all teeth and being kind and friendly no matter what. Okay, so not necessarily being your authentic self. You're trying to please others by smiling. And then you see the other false mouth is of the kissing mouth, which is of sexuality. So these are both false images of the divine feminine as we grow up. It's the templates that our children have taken on, and they think that that's who they're supposed to be. The pleaser and the sexual. Okay? So this was perfect. And look at the chains around their neck. I mean, yes, these were two separate necklaces they wore at the time, but it looks like one necklace chaining them together in codependency. And they're both wearing the same color as well, which is that wine burgundy color of what people consider the root chakra. Grounding them into 3D protection, not the authentic protection that they can give themselves. And from this picture, it was so apparent that these girls graduating from school are changing their personas, because they both dramatically changed this year. My daughter cut all of her hair off, and that was interesting, because I'm trying to figure out how is that the divine masculine and the divine feminine. She's always been a very strong divine masculine, because she had to protect herself because her father and I split up at a very young age. She always was very feminine. She always had lots of hair, and she loved to dress up, but she made herself up into a more sexual role than she should be. That's the old templating that we're breaking down. And now that she's cut all her hair off, it's representative of the divine feminine cutting out the false divine feminine from her life and restarting. It's a reset. And the same with the being kind to everyone and being a people pleaser. Same thing, changing how you are in a physical sense, which a lot of kids do when they graduate or during college when they're changing and growing, to kind of start all over, to recreate your image and who you really want to be, your authenticity. So the girls are learning that. The divine feminines are learning that about themselves. Who am I really? What are the old programs, and how do I get rid of them? Breaking the codependency. And don't allow dark influences to come between you. When you have a weak foundation, like the false image of the divine feminine, it's very easy for the dark to come between you. But if you become your authentic self, it's going to be very hard for the dark to come between you and split you up, okay? Because you're no longer codependent on each other. You stand in your own knowing. And I thought it was interesting too, the little sparkles that are above each of their heads. In some of the videos, they just look like 1111 on each side, and then on this one and on the, I guess the tag I used for the video, they look like 7s and 1s. So that was pretty profound. This was a perfect example of codependency. And again, you see they're each 4 digits on each side, which is that stability and foundation that are needed so desperately. You need to build a strong foundation first of your authenticity. Then when I was going through this that morning, this was yesterday morning, these noises, all of a sudden, these noises started happening in the ceiling as my daughter's roommate got up. And all of her power was out on her side of the apartment only. So I kept hearing these noises, so I counted them. The first time it counted up to 33, and then a small noise right after that, which was 34. So it was 33 whole noises, and then it tapered off on the 34th. And 33 is the Christ vibration, and it's also the 7 of Wands, standing up for yourself, defending your territory, all that kind of thing, fending off others. And then 34 goes into the expressing your feelings of passion. So this is all representative of what was happening with the girls. And then we go on, the tapping continues, and the power's still out on her side of the apartment. And then I got 1, 2, just 2, which is their relationship, the 2 of them. And then it started again up to 11, okay, which is the 11 above their heads. The energies of happiness came up yesterday. Yesterday was the Justice and the Ace of Wands, which is 11 and 27. So that's Ace of Wands is pure passion. It's that new beginning, that inspiration, that, being aroused. It's very sexual. And then justice, the balance in that, the wisdom in that, the spirituality in that, the co-creation in that. So the energies that came up for the Divine Feminine yesterday were happiness and the ending of a family cycle, like a family that wasn't real, that artificial, that the exterior, cover. I call it the sham fam. So anyway, the devil was coming up, and on this deck, the mark on his head was coming out. So it was like the Divine Masculine has a mark on his head, and the name mark came up as well as being important and involved in this. The connections, the codependencies, the father codependencies, the brother codependencies. There's something about getting between family or families after there's greediness here involved in here, and loss of money and status. Trying to lasso in unsuspecting performers, who are repeating patterns in the false templates. And then getting aroused about doing this, and greed, and sidestepping and hiding their involvement in unscrupulous activities that wasn't their idea, but somehow got roped into this. And it all has to do with greed, basically holding them by a noose. So once you get into something that you didn't really want to be involved with, then you start to lie naturally, because you have to hide your involvement, right? So of course that's not going to end up well. So this is the scenario for some of the Divine Masculines. And then my daughter brings up, after I'm talking about a noose, about someone in Atlanta who had hung themselves from a bridge. And was it suicide, or had someone actually done this to them? So that parallels exactly what I was just saying. So when you're in a noose, using someone else for money or legacy, causing them to lose their balance due to faulty grounds because it wasn't a strong foundation. It becomes quicksand, and then you end up repeating all your patterns, swallowed up by greed. And it can be other codependencies, but this was the codependency coming up. The Sphinx had his sword out, protected by an angel with scripture, and an eagle with the book of knowledge.